Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're making potato soup.
That's right, Johnny. We're making potato soup if we were able to have potatoes. But since it's the potato famine, Johnny, there's no potato soup.
No soup today, huh?
That's
too bad. It would have been a good day for potato soup. It's chilly.
It is very cold. Very
so
cold.
the famine, huh?
Yeah, it is the Great Potato Famine, which
today, huh?
actually
Okay.
the real name is the Great Famine because calling it the Potato Famine is kind of a little insensitive to the Irish. But whatever. Screw it. They're the ones who get affected.
Well, is there's more to it than just potatoes?
No, it's pretty much just the potato crops that get affected. So I guess it is appropriate to call it the potato famine. But there just seems to be something a little off about calling it a potato famine. When, it
feels to me like maybe the potato famine existed and then we made it a racist thing towards the Irish.
You might be.
I think maybe one came before the other, and it was the famine. But I don't know much about it except
this is a you request to me episode. So buckle up, Johnny. It's pretty awful, and it's going to occur.
I love these.
It's going to occur from 1845 to 1855. It's going to wreck the Irish countryside, change the landscape of Ireland and the demographics of Ireland. And you're wondering, how could this happen if the only crop that's really affected is potatoes? Well, racism is pretty much how it happens. Although Ireland has been officially a part of the United Kingdom at this point for 40 years, so it is one nation under God, so to speak. This is very much like the Philippines are to us. They are technically still a part of our country, but not.
So a bit, like Puerto Rico, sort of.
Yeah. The Philippines, Puerto Rico,
that way.
The
any of
U.S.
our
Virgin Islands.
Any of those territories we have that are...
Do we still have the Philippines? Yeah, we still have the Philippines.
I don't know.
I think so.
No, I don't know that.
I don't know that. Well, we do have Puerto Rico.
If you're from the Philippines and you consider yourself American, let us know.
The Puerto Rico is definitely ours. Yeah, that one is definitely...
For sure.
Anyway, so it's like being in Puerto Rico. Anyways.
Okay.
So, at this point in time, they're more of an exploitive colony to England, where they send their cheap produce to England, and then England... thrives off of that cheap produce, specifically corn. Ireland grows a crap ton of corn. They don't eat the corn themselves. They ship it off to England. Okay. There are, in fact, laws on the books called the Corn Laws, which put high tariffs on corn imported from outside the UK. So, Ireland's a part of the UK.
Part of it, so we don't have to worry about
So we don't have to pay those imports. Now, if you're in Ireland and you want corn, you're not going to get it because that's going to England.
Yeah, I wonder why Ireland became part of the UK.
It might be something to do with that. Now, right around this time frame, there are 8 million citizens living in Ireland, with only 1 million residing in the cities, leaving the rest to subside off the land in the countrysides.
Wow.
Unfortunately for those living in the country, they didn't actually own any of the land. The majority of the land was owned by a few, land owners, and this was very much a class system in Ireland, with the very bottom being what are called the courtiers.
Is this similar to what we ended up doing with, what was it, crop sharing or whatever, where farmers would be... You're allowed to farm a bit of land, but you don't own it, but you can farm it and make some money off of it. But
so the cottagers, they live in mud huts.
Apparently.
Yeah, they live in mud huts on very, very small tracts of land in very, very undesirable locations, like the side of a mountain or in mud marshes, which is not exactly the most ideal place to grow most crops. Great. No.
Also, just living in general is not ideal.
Living in a mud hut.
I mean, you build with the resources around you at this time, I guess. And if you got a lot of mud,
that's what you're
gonna have a mud house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, these cottagers, they have to work on the landowner's land for 200 days of the year. The rest of the year, they're able to grow their own crops, which doesn't give you a lot of time to grow your own produce.
No.
Easiest thing to grow in Ireland is the potato. It's apparently it really loves wet environments like bogs and mud bogs.
Yeah.
And it's almost an impossible plant to kill.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's one of those like with the potato barrels that you do in your backyard. All you're doing is piling stuff on it and getting it wet.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it takes.
It's an easy crop.
Yeah, easy crop to grow. So they grow in abundance, and it becomes their main staple of food. And by main staple of food, I mean it's their staple of food. That's what they eat.
Which is great because they're packed full of nutrition.
Oh, yeah. A potato with a little bit of buttermilk, like a potato soup, or you just boil a potato and have a baked potato. I mean, there are people who really love potatoes. I'm not one of them, but there are people who really love potatoes.
How are you? You didn't come up with potatoes?
No, they're dry. I don't.
Well, make the right kind of potato. Make potato.
Hash browns, the actual true like hash browns, the small little shreds of potato that you fry up. Oh, delicious. Tater tots. Right. Well, love myself some tater tots. Okay. But like just a baked potato.
Potatoes. That's.
I pass on baked potato.
You're awful.
But it's actually such a good source of food for them that up until this point in time, Ireland's peasant class is actually one of the best fed peasant class in the world, and they are some of the healthiest with the most weight on them because potatoes packed full of nutrients. What could possibly go wrong? They also are only planting one type of potato.
No, that's good because biodiversity is a bad thing.
Yeah,
especially in the mid 1800s, we find people were really against biodiversity at this time
for reasons which might come and bite them in the ass. Because right around 1843, on the western seaboard of the United States, reports start coming in that potato crops are failing. They're starting to turn into this black mush, and nobody can understand why. Now, today we know that it was a type of bacteria which is called water moss. Yeah, it's a bacteria that grows mold on the potatoes. It's a water moss is what they call it. There's a really big long scientific name. I'm not even remotely try to pronounce it. Just know it's a bacteria that's going around. Now, the United States is one of the bigger exporters of seed potatoes because we got Idaho. There's a reason why it was famous then. It's still famous now for potatoes. And so we're still shipping these seed potatoes all across the world, thereby spreading this disease.
Oh, good. It's from us. We delivered it to them.
The world.
We excel as Americans and pre-Americans
we really do.
At just spreading just horrific, deadly diseases. If not to the natives, then to the Irish, apparently.
Apparently the Irish, yeah. In 1845, the blight is going to reach the southern Isles of England and is going to spread all over England, through Wales, Scotland, and finally arriving in Ireland in September 1845. Shoot. Now, at this point, England's like, no big deal, we've got corn. Like, it's not affecting corn plants. Yeah, it's just potatoes. It's not that big of a deal for us. A heavy, wet season spread the water mold like a plague, and now at the end of September 1845, Ireland is getting hit really hard. At this point, Ireland is under the control of Robert Peele, who's going to hear about the crop failures and say that in his racist way, the Irish, they just like to exaggerate their problems so they can get money out of the English crown. That's all they want is money. They're lazy, so they're just going to exaggerate that this is a problem.
Which I'm sure he said that this being the first time they came to him asking for any sort of aid or anything with their potatoes.
Yeah.
First time, but they're just lazy.
They're just lazy, yep.
They've been producing plenty of potatoes up until this time, but now,
as racist and awful as Peele is, he still does view the Irish as at least somewhat human. So
Peele for a name for a guy during the potato famine is just perfect.
It is kind of perfect. I didn't make that connection. This is pretty good. Now, he is going to send a scientific crew underneath John Lindley to go out and, like, all right, so do some studies, figure out what the hell's going on. Now, Lindley can't figure out what's going to go on, but he is also going to exaggerate things and make it even more fucking worse when he's like, 80% of the crops are going to fail.
That's a high percentage. That's not great.
Now, this first
that's something to
crop,
be taken seriously. Did 80% of the crops not fail?
No, the first crop in 1845, that at the end of the season there, it actually only failed by 40%, which is still a good chunk.
Nearly
but it's not
half
80%.
Of your crop is not great. I mean, all right, Tommy, you eat 40% less food.
Oh no, I get you. So Peele is actually because of this news, because of this whole 80% are gonna fucking lose all the crops. He does create a relief commission. Now his first idea is he goes to the Parliament in England and he says, "Hey, listen, some of their crops are gonna fail, and these are the crops that they're eating. Can we not export all their crops, the corn, to England, can we just have it, just to compensate what they're not going to get from the potatoes?
All right, hold up. All right, so a tiny little territory of the crown, like Puerto Rico, wants to stop giving the crown and its people all of the food that it's been giving them and wants to give them less of it?
Yeah, so that they can eat them.
They want to inconvenience them so that, they don't die?
Yeah, that's
unacceptable. That's ridiculous.
That's why it's not hard.
Surely they don't go for that.
Yeah, that's why it's not hard to predict that the crown's nope, not doing that.
So that's insane. What are they supposed to eat then if they don't eat the corn? The rest of the imports that they're getting from around the world and all their other colonies?
Which they can't get because of the corn laws. Remember that. Corn laws is going to come up here in a second. So what Peele does is he secretly buys 100,000 pounds of Indian maize, and that you heard that right. That's Indian corn. That's corn that the Indians grew. Yeah, we're going to buy 100,000 pounds of that, the maize. And he's going to try to distribute that to Ireland. But before he can distribute that to Ireland, he's got the corn laws in place. So he can't sell that to the Irish citizens without paying this massive tariff, which he doesn't want to pay, which the citizens obviously couldn't pay because that would make the corn even more expensive and fuck them over even worse than they already are.
Right.
So he has to go about repealing the corn laws, which he winds up doing, and we'll get to what the consequences of that are here in a second. His third idea is he creates a government works program where those in need could work on the government projects to earn money to buy the corn that he's now proposing that they buy with all this stuff that's going on. There's his whole plan here.
Okay.
It's what we did in the Great Depression with FDR. We had this works program where if you were unemployed, you can go work on a government project, building a bridge, picking up stickers off the side of the road, little small things that anybody
things
can do.
That we use prisoners for now.
Yes, and then we pay you penance that you can then buy the food that we should have just outright been giving you, but it's fine. It works.
Like we do to prisoners now.
Yes. Yeah. Now, what happens, unfortunately, is once he repeals the corn laws, his political party has a schism because half the party really likes the idea of these corn laws and bringing a shit ton of money, and it also promotes homegrown crops in Ireland. And then the other half's taxes are bad, get rid of them. So it splits his party in half. He loses the election. He's ousted from his position there in Ireland, and he gets replaced with an even
by
more
somebody with less good ideas.
Racist man by the name of Charles Trevelyan.
There it is.
Who's going to take over the famine relief with the goal to save England as much money as possible. He's on record going,
yes, this is what you want.
Going to save England money.
Anytime you are faced with a catastrophic, failure of your food source, in this case, any failure really, you want somebody who only cares about maximizing profits and money.
Yeah,
that's what you need. Not anybody concerned about how do we get food to folks.
And
that's not going to help people. What, can you eat food and survive off food? No, get money. Shove that in your mouth.
Trevelyan's boss, Wood, is even worse, who believes that it's God's will that the Irish are suffering.
That's my favorite thing. Good God. God's will.
We can't mess with God's will. It's God's will.
Y'all's God sucks. Because your all's God's will has been used to justify everything.
No.
It's God's will that all these natives are getting diseases they've never had and dying because we're not clean, and they are.
Now,
that's God's will.
Up until Peele being removed in 1846, nobody's died. Or at least nobody it's not really recorded that there have been any deaths yet due to the famine. When Charles Trevelyan takes over, his first policy is no more free food. So you got the workhouses, and that's your only option to get food is to go work at the workhouses. Now the problem with these workhouses are they're not in the rural areas; they're in the city areas.
Well, that's fine because 1 out of every 8 Irish person lives inside of a city.
So the 8 that don't have to walk to the city to get to there. The other problem is the countryside, these cottiers, they're not very literate. So when you post a notice of if you want corn, you got to go to the workhouse to work for the fucking corn, they're not going to be able to read that to even go there. And then on top
also,
of
what are the odds they pass your little sign?
Right. Yeah.
Throughout their day.
And then on top of all of that, they have to prove to a doctor that, yes, in fact, they are starving. Now, does that doctor come to you at the workhouse? No, you have to go to them, which is another up to a day's walk away.
I know little about this. What's a hard thing to do if you're starving?
Physical exertion of any kind. So
is that difficult?
Walking.
Is it hard to do things when you're starving?
Yeah, those are not great.
Huh. Shoot, that's gonna make it difficult then to get to a doctor inside of a city to go work.
Johnny, it gets better.
If you're starving.
On top of all of that, there's only room for 100,000 at these workhouses.
Well, that's fine because
there's 900,000 that are
8,000th.
Yeah, there's 900,000 that are at need. The other problem is they have these weird rules where you have to be in a uniform to work at the workhouse to get the food, and they run out of uniforms. So instead of letting them wear their civilian street clothes, they make them wear nothing at all, which then caused multiple people to freeze to death.
No.
Because they're working in the winter naked.
I'm sorry. No. What? No. Either you wear a uniform or you wear nothing?
Or you wear nothing. That's your option.
And this was the government?
It's the government, yeah.
And they just thought that was okay to do that to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did the uniforms provide? What were they?
Nothing.
Just colors? Just a color? Just
a uniform.
An emblem on the jacket, maybe?
There might have been a little emblem on a jacket, Johnny. Nearly 100% of the crop is going to fail in 1846, and Trevelyan and his boss are like, oh well, this God's will.
I mean, we tried by taking away everything they had, any sort of support system, and then charging them money and making them prove that they could work. We did our shit. We did it.
Yeah,
how's it not working?
They're gonna disband the whole relief project.
Oh, but it was so successful.
Crops, yeah. Up to this point, it was, but then they ban it, and they pass a law called the Labor Rate Act, which looks into why these poor people are getting free handouts and why the work wages are so high. So they slash the work camp wages.
So their assumption is, oh, goddamn. Like, all right, I recognize that 100% of the crops did not come to fruition. But boy, oh boy, all these Irish folks sure did get lazy real quick. So we better take away any sort of assistance that we've been giving them because obviously they're all just suckling off our teat now.
Now,
that's the thought.
Only thing that prevents Trevelyan and Wood from really being considered genocidal maniacs at this point is that in 1846 they do open up soup kitchens. Like after people start dying, they're like, oh well, maybe we should do something. So they do the bare minimum where they open up some soup kitchens where people can go get at least a meal.
Okay, that's great.
But Johnny, by 1847,
the good thing about the Nazis was that they provided loaves of bread to their prisoners so that they could eat.
Potatoes.
So
they were very big on the potatoes in the ghettos. So
not genocidal there, I guess, because they wanted to keep alive their people they were getting free work from.
Yeah. By the summer of 1847, Johnny, crops fail again. And the English businessmen...
Oh, shucks, again.
The English businessmen go, well, those soup kitchens that we've been running for the last half year, they're too expensive. Shut them down. So get shut down. So now after the second crop that's completely failed, there is now literally no support left to the Irish except the work camps.
Yeah, they've tried nothing and it hasn't worked, so give up.
Obviously, at this point, you start getting mass exodus from Ireland because we're starving, you're not helping us, what else are we going to do? And they start to flee. But not the courtiers, because they can't actually afford the boat passage. So they're going to start wandering the countryside, starving. There are images. It's painting the picture of very much like concentration camps, very emaciated, starving people. Just whole families die and they're just left in the house or left on the side of the street. Like you don't even have the Monty Python, bring out your dead. You don't even have that going
because
on.
It's literally in a time like the people who pass them or would know that they have passed or died. They don't have the time, resources, or energy to do anything about that.
It. Yeah, no. To make matters even worse,
they can't spend their day burying families because then they'll just die of exhaustion and starvation.
Now, to make matters even worse for the courtier groups, they at this point they still own they have to pay rent to the landlords, right? It's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the agreement.
For the first couple of years, the landlords were like, we don't want to be those douchey guys that are like evicting people during this panic. I mean,
they're like, hey, I get it. It's been tough. The potatoes aren't coming to fruition. Not your fault, but after a couple of years, they're like, it is your fault. You're a bad farmer.
Yeah,
give me my fucking money.
But just like in COVID, they're like, we gave you guys 2 weeks worth of relief. So what's your problem? And then they start evicting people. And by evicting them, I mean,
did you guys not get the $1,600 check? That should be good for what? 10 months of living expenses? Be good for a
whole year. Yeah, come on.
God, what?
So they actually start getting evicted, and when they get evicted, it's not like little sign gets nailed onto your door, so you got 30 days to get out of here. No, they go with groups of clubs, and you're physically getting.
All right, so some folks in Ireland are still eating. Then,
you've got
the
you've
people
got
with the
class,
clubs.
Are
still. So what food are they getting? Are they just?
They're just importing
food?
Not all the corn gets shipped to England, but the corn that stays is so expensive that the courtiers and the majority of the people can't really afford to eat it.
Okay.
So you've got classes. So you've got at the very top, tippity top, you've got English that live in Ireland, and then you got
they're not
Irish,
suffering.
They're not suffering at all. Then you got the Irish Protestants that are also rich and fine, and then underneath them you got the Irish Catholics, but not the Irish Catholic like the people who go to the church, but the priests that run the church, they're fine.
And then you get the clergy. Type stuff, yeah.
Then you get the middle rung, who's mostly getting on boats and leaving, and then you got the courtiers. Now, the middle rungs who are getting on boats and leaving.
All right, so I feel like I'm doing okay. I'd be getting on a boat and leaving.
You'd be getting on a boat and leaving.
Is where I'm at.
Between 1845 and 1855, it's estimated that 2 million, and it's probably more than 2 million, but 2 million emigrated outside of Ireland. The vast majority of them, which is 80%, immigrate to the United States.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, because this is why then they escaped the potato famine, had just enough money to get out, came over here, and, you're what, Irish? Yeah, don't like that. Go ahead and build some railroads or something, and now you'll be slaves here.
Yeah, we do not treat them very well in the United States. We had signs of Irish need not apply, but to be fair, most businessmen weren't that overtly racist where they said Irish need not apply. It usually was like Catholics need not apply, or they would just outright not hire you if you're Irish, but not tell you that they're not hiring you.
Oh, so that's not racist. Yeah, no.
No, it's racist. No, it's horribly racist, but I'm saying it's not like the overt they don't.
Oh, it was
the Irish need not apply.
Quieter, so it's like today, a quieter racism.
Yeah.
It's like watch what name you put on your job application. Maybe,
but once we get
whiten it up a little bit, and then you won't be discriminated against for your race.
But
they're not racist. They're just not going to accept your name.
Yeah. And once we get into our own Civil War, obviously we like to use them for cannon fodder on both sides, so that was fun. And then when we're building the Transcontinental Railroad, super important for us to build the Transcontinental Railroad.
Well, the thing about that is the Irish and the Chinese communicated so well that it just made sense to put them on the lines together.
Yeah, right? Those ships that did try to go to England, because obviously it's a hell of a lot closer boat ride to go to England and a hell of a lot cheaper boat ride to go to England. The problem is the docks, when they would get to England, the English would be there with clubs and bats and kick it. Get the fuck out of here! Go back to Ireland, you lazy pricks! Right. These are your own citizens. You all are supposed to be equal. You're all a part of the same country, but they're getting. Which then again, as I'm saying this, if a bunch of Puerto Ricans came to the United States, I guarantee you we'd have the go They're going to take our jobs. Yeah, you're probably right. We would treat them.
They would also be met with clubs and guns and bullying and racism and go back to your own country.
Even though they're in
mentality.
Technically, they're.
Hey, you want to know why they're not a state, though?
Is it because they're brown?
Little bit.
Okay.
100%.
So immigration was so pronounced and so large at this period in time. By 1861, Johnny, can you guess the city with the largest native Irish-born population? Is it Dublin, perhaps? No, it's New York. It's New York City.
I was close.
You're close. It has the largest native-born Irish population in the entire world. So not a city in Ireland, not Dublin, New York. That's where.
Well, that's because none of the folks lived in cities in Ireland.
You're right.
A tenth of them lived in a city. They were all a bunch of rural folk.
Now, Johnny, the plight is going to start to peter out by 1852. The crops start to rebound. It's nature does its nature's course. The crops that do survive, breed other healthier immune crops, all that fun stuff. So by 1852, the blight's over, pretty much over. By 1855, it's generally considered completely over. And in that period of time, Ireland's original 8 million population, over 1 million are going to outright die. Over 2 million are going to immigrate, leading to a little over a third of their entire population just gone.
That's tough.
From Ireland, which is not great. And proportionally, in comparison to the original population to what was ended, it is actually one of the worst famines in all of human history, including the Great Famine over in China, where they killed like 2 million people. But proportionally, a lot more died.
A lot of people.
Here in Ireland, because there's a lot more. There's 1 billion in China, and then 2 million and billion is not. That's nothing in comparison. But yeah, so go have some potato soup tonight, I guess.
That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about Canada and the United States fighting over some shit.